You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, Shelley Rosland.
Hello there, my friend, and we are back. Thank you for choosing to listen to us today, and you will not regret it today, I promise you. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the concept of human design, and more specifically, how it supports the fact that any time and work you can spend on getting closer to being more of yourself every day is time well spent. Now, when I say human design, I'm talking about the work which has come to fruition by way of Alan Robert Krakower, hopefully I've said that right, who over time has come to be known by his pseudonym of Ra Uru Hu. He published a book called The Human Design System in 1992. But don't worry too much. My guest today is going to help you and I to wrap our head around the system and how it can reflect some really crucial insight into why it's really important to lean more into being more of yourself, because if you don't, there are very real energetic consequences. So I'm going to read Wikipedia's definition of human design, but then what I'm going to do is get my guest to tell us a bit more in practical terms so that you can get a bit more of an understanding of it. So here goes. Wikipedia says, human design is a pseudoscientific New Age practice described as a holistic self-knowledge system. It combines astrology, the Chinese I Ching, Judaic Kabbalah, Vedic philosophy, and modern physics. And yes, not only is that a mouthful, but it's also quite a deep and diverse system to look at and understand. So luckily for us, we have someone who can come and help us navigate that. So let me introduce you to Jacqueline Kent, and then we'll jump straight in. So Jacqueline is a human design specialist, award-winning coach, author and speaker. She focuses her work with female creatives and manifesting generators. Don't worry, we'll soon learn what that is. And she thrives in inspiring her guests to stop shrinking and start shining. Love that. So Jacqueline is married to Bruce, who's also become quite the role model and stepdad to her 3 teenage sons, which I can't believe are aged between 18 and 32, and they're living in Nottingham. Well, welcome, Jacqueline.
Good morning, Shelley, and thank you so much for having me on today. I've been really looking forward to this chat.
32, Jacqueline, seriously, like child bride?
I was young.
Good God.
I was 16.
Oh my goodness.
That's right.
Well, that explains why you still look divine. You still look divine.
I think they've kept me young somehow or other.
Oh gosh, yes, keep you going. That's what they do. Oh gosh, I'm so pleased to have you on because I've been really intrigued about this whole human design for a couple of years. A couple of people that I was following that were coaches or specialists in other areas started to move into that space, and I just haven't had the brain capacity to really sit down and take it in. Yes, I've done my chart. Yes, I've figured out I'm a manifesting generator. I have no idea what that means. But while you and I were chatting and getting to know each other, God, and you know this because I said it to you while we were talking, I was like, say that thing that you just said, say it again. And you said to me that the more energy you spend more energy trying to be a version of yourself that actually isn't you, then you could have, saved all of that energy by just being yourself. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's a conversation. So should we get into it?
Let's go. Yeah. I mean, I'm just sitting here nodding because it's something that I've come back to so many times, especially recently, because I've been doing a lot of speaking recently, and I'm just opening with that line because it's just
I think you have to. I think you have to.
This is a thing that you need to recognise. Like if you're trying to be somebody rather than just being who you are,
you must be
exhausted. How much energy are you using? Yeah,
exactly. So I'm not a big fan of Wikipedia, so I don't like that being the thing. So what I'd really like is if you can describe to us a bit more, the human design system. How would you define it? How would you explain it?
Oh, happy to. Yeah. So it's a really deep, insightful self-knowledge tool that brings together, like you've said, all of those ancient systems and modern science. It has been referred to as the science of differentiation, and by that what I mean is that It helps you understand what is actually true for you and how much of who you are is based on your conditioning, based on the ways in which you have moved through the world up until that point that perhaps aren't actually your truth. So in using the human design as a guide, like a map for the way in which your energy works, you're able to pinpoint, okay, so this is true for me, but perhaps all of these other things are not. And that is the gift that it gives you when you understand how to kind of interpret it or have a conversation with the right person that is able to point you in the right direction to say, here's what I'm noticing about what you're doing that maybe doesn't relate to who you actually are.
And kind of feeding back while you're talking to them about their chart, going, have you seen that to be true? And their head starts to nod and shake.
That's
and get
it.
the
Yeah, it's so much. There is so much confirmation to be had in the conversations that I have with people. They're like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Yep. And it's, and then there might be times where it's like, oh, and then they'll realise, well, maybe that could be me if I allowed it to be.
Nice. So for everybody listening who has no idea, basically you will get your chart done, and it's literally based on and you can go into this, but you literally put your birthday in and you get a chart. It spouts out the chart, right? So when they get the answer from their chart, it tells them a type that they are within this human design system. So do you want to maybe talk us through what the different types are? So very, very minimalistically, for anybody listening who's ever done a personality profile, for example, you normally spend a load of time answering a whole whack of questions, and then you get like slotted into a category of what it is that you are, and it's all very enlightening. This is slightly different, but you're doing a similar thing where you're inputting something, you get something out. But can you explain to us the different types and the top level differences maybe between them?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the first thing about running your chart is it's your date, time and place of birth. They are the three pieces of information you need. The place being about the time zone specifically.
Oh, gotcha.
And so in doing that, this is first of all the thing that I love about it when sat alongside, some of those like Enneagram and all of those kinds of things, they're doing that based on your answers. Whereas this is just information that you can't lie about. Like, you put your information in, you get the answer, you get the results. Yeah. So, yes, certainly. So each of the types, now they're segmented up a little bit. So I'll go into a little bit about roughly how much of the population we're looking at in particular and what it means to be that particular type. So first of all, you would find what we call the manifester, or in this high frequency language that I am also trained in, the initiator, which is a different version known as quantum human design. And that gives you some idea. So if you're somebody who feels like you're always starting things off, you're always getting the ball rolling, you're like there to get the party started, that is your job. So you get this divine inspiration and you're like, bam, I'm going. Now your energy moves really quickly. So it's very helpful if when you recognise something that you want to follow up on, you let those around you know that that's what you're doing, so they know to kind of clear the path and get out of your way. Nice. And then you can't be disrupted while you're doing, like in your zone of genius, you are taking action and you're going for it.
Should we do an example of it? I don't know if you can do this, so I'm just throwing this at you like a curveball, but I'm just thinking like, is there someone that we know like in the popular commercial media world that we would all recognize, that you could go, actually I think that person fits that box? I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, just off the top of your head.
I'm just trying to think. I know I've got a reference book somewhere that's got various different ones. Do you know what, I'm going to Google it, because there is lots of information out there, and various ones are, it's really helpful to know.
Yeah, we don't need to do it now. What I could do is we could look at it afterwards, and I could pop it into the show notes.
I've got a couple for you. We've got,
okay, go for it.
Jerry Seinfeld. We've got Gwen Stefani.
Oh gosh.
We've got Bruce Springsteen as a starting point for you there.
There we go. Okay, I suppose we don't know them personally, do we? So we don't really know.
Understand exactly how they move. Exactly. But yeah, it's with some of the other types, it's actually. There are things that have played out for them that when you get to know a little bit
outwardly,
more,
you would.
That's totally what was going on there.
Perfect. All right, let's go for it. So
that's that one. So one of the things that we spoke about when we were preparing this, where we were talking about, are there 4 types or are there 5 types? And I'll explain a little bit about why there's that kind of like question mark over it.
Yeah.
So 70% of the population are what we call the generator types. It's the workforce energy of the world.
Yeah.
However, in that 70%, there's a almost 50-50 split. So about a third of the population are purely generator types. They have this doing energy. Now, what that means is that not, you are here to work, but you are here to do the work that lights you up. And in quantum human design, they're known as the alchemists. So they're somebody who all of what they bring about into the world inspires others, really translates into some kind of inspiration that is something that really gets people, that they're like, they're inspired by what this person is doing in the world, and the way in which they do their work means that when they love what they do, then they get to do more of what they love.
In that zone of genius.
Yeah. Nice. And obviously we need people to be doing work in the world because that's how the world keeps moving forward. So it's a super important part of what they're here to do. When they're not lit up by their work, they find themselves in a place of frustration, and it's like dimming down that light, dimming down that, that beautiful energy of what attracts people to them, because they're just not inspired by what they're doing.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 2, and then the third one is what we sometimes refer to as like a 2-for-1 deal. So the manifesting generator, and that's something that we've already touched on just briefly. They have a blend of both of those energies, the manifestor energy of that spark of inspiration and the doing, the workforce energy. So what that means is we have an awful lot of energy for doing. We are naturally good at multitasking. In fact, it feels like we're almost not being true to ourselves if we're not multitasking.
Okay.
Do you need me to repeat that? Because there was a couple of knots in there. But fundamentally, what it looks like is there are people watching you going, I don't know how you do it all. You're continually spinning plates. Where do you get that energy from? And some of that energy is actually about needing to be used up in order for you to be able to operate the most effectively. Sometimes you just do so that you can use up some of your doing energy. And that might mean that you find yourself going down a path of doing something that you're not even bothered about finishing, but in that moment you're doing it just so you can kind of like just get rid of some of that extra energy that you have. Does that sound true for you, Shelley?
Yeah, but I think what I was just struggling with while you were saying that was getting into this perimenopause state now of having to fight that energy battle seriously on a day-to-day basis. I think that balance, that shift has changed a bit. So while I think it's more about being proactive and taking action in order to see results for me. So yes, I am spinning different plates, but sometimes the plates are very specific. It's not like, let me just be busy.
No, that's right.
You know what I mean? I suppose this is also for people running their own businesses, isn't it? Like if you don't take action, nothing happens.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There are going to be some projects and different things you get involved in that you don't actually find yourself feeling lit up by anymore, so you don't continue to do those things.
I get bored, Jacqueline.
I know, bored. and that is a real problem for our energy type. In quantum human design, you're known as a time bender. Like your energy moves so fast that actually it feels like you're, speeding up time in the amount of things that you're doing. So that felt like it landed for you.
That's freaking... Yeah. I just thought of is it Percy Jackson? That is, he's a light bender, I think. I was like, I could be a time bender. I could be Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
All right. So that's number 3, right?
Yeah, that's the... So we've now we've touched on almost 80%. Almost 80% of the population we've got there.
Yeah.
And then so actually just very briefly going back to the whole the celebrity piece, we have got Mother Teresa. We have Stephen King, he's a manifesting generator.
Wow, Stephen King.
Miley Cyrus, Martin Luther King, just a few for you.
Wow.
People who, they had important work to do in the world, right?
Feels like there's visionary in there somewhere. If you think of the stuff from Mother Teresa and definitely Stephen King.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And obviously Martin Luther King. God. Okay. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. So in the next part is approximately 20% of the population. They're known as the projectors. Now, in quantum human design, they're known as orchestrators. And the conversations I've been having recently, in the main, I think because of the kind of people that I tend to work with, they're like, I feel so much more seen as an orchestrator, as somebody who is here to guide the energy of others so that we're able to stay on track and do what it is we're here to do. Nice. So in terms of, if you imagine each of these as what they're doing in their role, the projector's job is actually to shine a light on what it is that needs to be done, but not to do that work themselves. It's actually to guide those who have that workforce energy.
I'm kind of pulled towards that. And then, I've heard you talk about this before, where you really have to get your time of birth correct for this, because you said that even if you made a mistake of going, oh yeah, I was born in the morning, but I was actually born in the evening, sometimes that could make a difference
can make a significant difference. It can make tiny differences in some cases. And I had this a couple of times over the weekend. I was at a Mind, Body, Spirit event and I had people going, oh, I'm not quite sure. So we went through, a couple of hours at a time to see what the differences were. And in some of them, it was like, oh, that's not, not a massive difference. Yeah. But in others, it was like it changes your energy type. So you'd be telling yourself a really quite different story. To forget. Yeah. And, we can always have a conversation and explore that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Just to check. Because you might be, it's possible, and this is the case for me. I recognise myself as this manifesting generator, this multitasker. But in my chart, I have quite a lot of what's known as projected energy. And that means that I feel like I want to guide people. So I have that aspect in my chart, but it's not the main core thing about who I am.
Oh, got you. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So cool. There are, it's not like you are a definitive this and this is how you are. There are so many nuances to that as you sort of go deeper.
As humans are such diverse creatures.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Right, so we are number 4, that was projectors.
Yep, that's right. And so they are, as I say, approximately 20%. And then we come to the rare, beautiful breed, which is about 1% of the population. And
I'm very interested to know which famous person or someone that we would recognise.
Robbie Williams is a well-known projector.
No, dude, no.
Oh.
That does not inspire me. No.
No, okay, he's not inspiring you. That is fine. Who else? Oh, Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, I can see
Nelson
that,
Mandela, Barack
God,
Obama, JFK.
Yes. Why would Robbie Williams be in there? Honestly,
quite a few. He some of what he experienced was the projection of what was going on around him, and that was why he felt so out of place. And that is quite a common story for projectors who are still finding their way. They feel like they sometimes feel a little bit like the world doesn't get them.
Right. So, all right. So that moves us on to number 5 then.
That's right. Yep. So there's 1%, and they are known as the reflectors. And a very specific thing about their chart is, if you looked at their chart, you would see that there was a lot of what looks like sort of white, like space, blank space, because their energy is very open. So what that means is they are very much amplifying the energy from all around them and then reflecting it back. And what that looks like is they don't have that energy for doing. They are here to be in that space, to be able to help us see what we need as a collective, to be able to help us recognise when we are doing well, how we're feeling, how we're being, but hold that space for us to be able to, then make some kind of adjustment if things aren't going so well. And I've had the fortune to have, one of my human design colleagues that I work alongside sometimes, she's a reflector, to really get to understand it, you need to see them in action. And it's fascinating. So often what they will tend to do is they won't necessarily be that engaging in conversation in a community, but what they're doing is sampling the energy to see how it feels, to see if it feels good or if it feels like there's something off. It's
so they sound like they must be highly empathic.
Oh, very, very much so.
And quite vulnerable to burnout.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
So you can understand why, understanding this about yourself, especially in business, can be really crucial to seeing how you need to be building a business that supports the way that your energy works.
And also as an expert, so for most people that are listening, they're service-based, they're knowledge experts, everything's in their brain, everything's in their head. So a lot of their work is probably very much one-to-one. So is very much having to have conversations, deep conversations more often than not. And you've got to do a lot of these things anyway, reflecting and projecting and all that, but not in the terms that you're talking about. But I think it, like you say, if you don't understand this big energy thing that's going on underneath, there might be a reason why you're finding some things really tough.
Yeah.
And other things much easier.
And quite often what happens is, so I forget the age, I can't think if it's 40 or 50, but it's quite common for the non-workforce energy types, so the 30% of the population, because they have spent a lot of time doing things in the way they think they're supposed to, they've been using energy that's not readily available for them, and actually that is often what leads them to burnout.
God, so this is like the manifesting generators talking about them trying to be pure, wholesome generators without getting that time to be the manifesting side.
So the generators and the manifesting generators, they have that workforce energy. So
okay,
that's
you.
about
So it's
70%. It's
the
all the others, the other three. Yeah. They have, they have their own way of being and what they need to bring to us, but it's the way in which they do it. So if there's a lot of hustle and there's a lot of, trying to force things to happen, that can use up your energy. What can happen, for example, and I've seen this play out with clients, is when you're the manifestor type and you're here to get the ball rolling, you might actually commit yourself to try to see something all the way through, and actually the best thing for you to do is delegate it and pass it on to somebody else that can finish it for you, because you probably haven't got the energy to commit to it, and you're not inspired at that point. You've done your bit by initiating and beginning it and getting the ball rolling.
So interesting, isn't it? Do you think you change a bit more over time? I know I'm going a bit of scripture, because I would say in my early days of starting my business, it was very much, I don't know, and this might be true for most entrepreneurs anyway, it's like you've got to come up with an idea and then you want to implement it. And generally when you've got your clients as well, you give the advice, you do you go, right, now this is how you do it, and then you'd end up implementing. And now as I'm 15 years into agency, I can see the value of the implementation and then execution, but I'm just not interested in being that person doing the doing for the client. I have a team and I'll have people, I go, right, okay, now I do pass on. So I don't even know if I got energy from doing the doing back then. I don't know.
So, it's possible that that's because they weren't necessarily the things that really energized you, that really had
so it was the actual
really
lit
your fire.
Yeah.
It's not just about working and doing for doing's sake. It's about following that inspiration of this feels good, I'm going to go and do more of this.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be the case, especially when you're first starting out, or you're in, perhaps your first 5 years of business. There's a lot of experimenting going on. There's a lot of time where you just need to try something out for a bit, see if it works, see if it feels good, see if it's taking you somewhere you want to go. Because often we can get ourselves stuck in, well, I've committed to this now, so I feel like I've got to see it through. And I certainly did that in my previous business. I was in the wedding industry for 10 years.
God, that's hard work, then.
And I stuck to it for probably half of that. I didn't really want to be there.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
We get stuck there, don't we?
It was lockdown that gave me the opportunity to go, oh, okay, reset time. And
I've got no option now. I'm going to do something else.
I've got permission now not to be in the wedding industry. The last place anyone wanted to be honest.
So I think that probably gives us a good segue to kind of talk through the benefits of actually doing this work. So I'm going to marry this with, do human design work or something similar, where you are working on yourself and taking that time to observe yourself, reflect, and figure out energetically what suits you as well as your personality type. But maybe if we marry that with, actually, if you did this as a part of doing your keep on topic for the show, but the personal branding element that, which actually means you do need to take this reflective work. So I know I can think of a few, but what I might do is give you an opportunity to give a few benefits that you think if somebody's either running their own business, or I suppose they don't have to be, do they? They could be employed, they could be in organizations. What do you think the benefits are of doing this kind of work? And then I'll hop on afterwards.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think first of all, it's about the way in which it inspires you to actually want to get out of bed and do that work in the morning.
Nice.
So it's like that whole Monday morning feeling, I'm having this thing, for me at the moment, I'm having this thing where I'm feeling like I don't feel like I'm going to need a holiday for quite some time, because I love what I do so much that I would happily take it with me anywhere. And, not necessarily to say that that's the best way of approaching things, but that's just how I feel about it.
At the moment. Yeah.
And so as another example, my husband at the moment is struggling energetically with keeping going with his work, because I don't think he's really doing the thing that really inspires him, and he's desperate for a holiday. And so what it does in your business is it allows you to really look at, how can I, as me, show up as that version, like my best self? How do I get to be my best self in my business every single day? By understanding more about the way I do things, the things that perhaps you have already found yourself being drawn to doing, being part of, the things that you have had opportunities for. When you look at that and then you understand yourself through human design, there's often quite a strong relationship between those two things, because intuitively you were following something that you didn't really understand why necessarily that was speaking to you. So as an example, when I spoke about that pivot piece that I did in 2020, the thing that I was really thinking about was, what kind of things do I love that feel like they're something that have always come naturally to me? And I went back to the age of 9 when I was asked by teachers to offer guidance to another student at school, because they were having a struggle in their, like, how they were relating to one of the class teachers, and they wanted me to share my experiences. Well, as it turns out, that's exactly what's in my human design chart, is speaking about my life from my experiences and sharing the things that I've learnt. But for quite some time, I squashed that down and kind of was doing this business that I thought I was supposed to be doing. And, I can think of many times where I would show up at wedding fairs and just be like, why am I here? But I never stopped to really think about answering that question. I just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, when you do go from employment to self-employment, you do end up having this cycle, and some people are lucky their cycle is shorter before they get to realization, and for others, unfortunately, they could go on for 5, 10, 15 years. So I think one of the things for me, like listening to what you're saying together with some of the work that we do with personal branding, I think it's when you do take that time to really work out what those higher level values and drivers and motivators are, and then you realize why sometimes life was a bit tougher than it needed to be, because you're almost like what you were saying is you're trying to push against something that actually wasn't naturally you. And I suppose the other thing is you're able to really work out who you actually want to work with. Like, who are the people that would light you up and that feel like it's fun to work with them and energizing to work with them. And I love that your ideal clients now, you've decided they're manifesting generators. I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful for other people to realize and go, well, actually, I really like working with, just manifestors or just generators, or that's because they really would understand the psyche that underlies who your ideal client are.
Yeah, and that's been, a big discovery piece for me over the last few months, of actually standing in a space where I'm claiming, right, okay, it's okay, even though there's this powerful tool that I could help anybody I wanted to with if they were open to it. But actually, just choosing, I don't have to do that. There are, lower level ways I can do that, but at the highest level, I want to help, technically speaking, a third of the population and the creatives as well to show up as the best version of who they are. Whether that's in their business or whether that's in the way that they're moving through their life, help them do the thing that they were born to do and be who they were born to be. And instead of going, you know, like almost diluting the focus when it comes to that branding and the messaging and all of that stuff, and saying, well, I can help you and I can help you and I can help you. I'm actually saying, you know, I'm standing in this space for those people who have these specific challenges, because I totally get it. You know, I live with manifesting generators and I'm one myself. There's, you know, I understand the challenges around being distracted by all the things, you know, wanting to be spinning all the plates because you know you can, but actually there are ways in which you can not have to do all of that all the time, and slow down a little bit and just allow yourself to be who you are and just be that person.
Oh gosh, and there we'll circle quite nicely back to what I said at the beginning of the show, and that's that you actually really give yourself this energy boost by working on your personal brand. You know, whether you do include the human design work into that or something similar, you're just being able to bring more of yourself into your everyday. So you don't have to work that hard at being someone else during the day for certain activities, and you can just be more of yourself more of the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a huge gift that you can give yourself to be able to, you know, move through your life as you. You know, let's talk about kind of like the whole survival piece, to be able to at the end of your life go, I don't have regrets about who I've been.
No.
And I am not, because, so little bit of a personal story element to this. In my previous relationship, I had actually surrendered to thinking that the best way for me to get out of the relationship that I was in was to wait for my then husband to pass away.
Oh God.
And then I'd be able to carry on with my life.
Be waiting forever.
I would still be here right now, and that was 8 years ago, and let me tell you, the last 8 years have been incredible. Incredible. But I was literally giving up on living any kind of life and just existing. I was just expecting that was the best I could expect.
Yeah.
And when I think about that now, I'm like, so the last 8 years would not have been what they have been. No. And I would just have been here going, oh, come on, TikTok.
Well, we're terribly pleased that you sorted that out, actually.
Thank you.
And that you're here today.
Oh, sorry, yeah, a bit deep, but yeah.
No, it's not that you're too deep. We're also coming to the end. I mean, God, I could dig into this all day, but yeah. We're coming to the end of our session, but thank you so much. There's so much to digest and reflect on there. So, but thank you so much for helping me and everyone listening to just now, because it is huge, this universe of human design. It's quite, but it's incredibly fascinating. So if somebody wanted to find out more about you, or they wanted to come and work with you, what's the best way to connect with you or find you?
So you can go straight to my website, which is literally all the W's, jacquelinekendt.co.uk. Nice and simple. If you are on social media, I have a specific Facebook group for, so I'll just tell you what it is, which is the Human Design Haven for Manifesting Generators and Creatives.
Very specific. Well done, you.
Very specific. Thank you. And that was one of those, it's been a few things over time, but now that is what it is. It is your safe space to be all of your brilliant self, whatever that looks like.
Very nice. We'll pop that all into the show notes as well.
Thank
you.
And
I assume LinkedIn, or is Facebook your preferred?
Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm on there as well. I have some lovely conversations on there, which is, I'm just Jacqueline Kent on there, so you should hopefully find me quite easily. And Jacqueline Kent Official on Instagram.
Lovely. I think it's so helpful talking to people who are much deeper on a subject, because we get, we can really get into the nitty gritty a bit quicker, and the more interesting bites a lot quicker than all of us trying to, digest all the free information that's out there on human design. It's been wonderful being able to have this conversation with you. Thank you very much.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Lovely. And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what did you think? For me, I think human design is one more insightful avenue that is pointing to the fact that you should be making it a priority to work on sharpening and articulating a version of you that you are comfortable with to take out into the world on a daily basis. And if you want to survive as a functioning and happy human in the future, in the face of the modern working world of remote working, artificial intelligence and advancing technology, working on your personal brand sounds like mission critical stuff to me. So, who do you know who could do with listening to this conversation and Jacqueline's insights? Share this episode. I know you want to. Until next time, my friends, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏.com.